This is John Benko, EVP of Administrative Services with ADL Final Mile, and you're watching Last to First.
But let's go back to your origin story. Way before you got
Sure.
to ADL Final Mile, you were in the air freight industry, as I understand.
Well, Airline.
Airline,
So I started in 1984 with Piedmont Airlines, 17 years old, right out of high school. Attempted for a while to go to college and work. Decided that I wanted to make a career in the airline industry, and so made the milk run. South Bend, Fort Wayne, Tallahassee, Charlotte, Philadelphia, and Tampa is where I jumped ship in 1999, and I started my first courier company in 1999 in Tampa.
How'd that come about? What
Yeah, it's the age-old story where there was a need and it wasn't adequately being satisfied. So I was the customer service manager in Tampa at that point, and I couldn't get my baggage delivery vendor to come visit me. He just kept ignoring me. And so I was lamenting that with my regional director, and he said, listen, he says, just put a guy down there with a hand truck and baggage, tell him that you're going to rip the contract, and he'll come see you. Sure enough, he did. He came and visited me. He heard my tale of woe and, basically said there's not enough money in this business to make money doing what you're suggesting, because Super Shuttle was the vendor, and their primary business was moving people.
Yeah.
And nationally. And so Tampa was just one location. So I gave him basically the business model that I went with. I said, they had 160 vehicles at that point. I said, break off 15 of them, take the seats out, and, treat this as a proper business.
Yeah.
He had no interest in doing that. He said, well, you let your conscience be your guide. If you feel like you don't want to use us anymore, that's okay.
Yeah.
What I didn't anticipate was that post that meeting, all my senior managers for all the other airlines were having the same service challenges. And within about a month, I had about $500,000 worth of business potentially staring me in the face. But at that point, I was a senior manager for, U.S. Air at that point. And, the regional got wind through the union that I'd been more successful than he anticipated. And he said, John, you kind of have to make a decision. And I already talked to Sandra that I was somewhat disenfranchised with the airlines at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and aspiring to where I thought I wanted to go, it changed. And so I was going to do something different. I just didn't know what.
So wait, I get the story straight. You were still working for the airline while you...
Yes.
Okay, so you started moonlighting on the side.
Yeah.
And you were picking up close to $500,000 at the first month of
initially it was probably $100,000.
Okay.
But then two of the larger airlines, Delta and American, said, well, we'll throw our hat in the ring if you're interested. The challenge there was that, newly minted business run out of my house and funded by the First National Bank of Benko. And so floating the loan, because they paid every 30 days. So I had to float to contend with. And so I eventually did acquiesce, and I said, okay, I'll take this on. And it was a real struggle. And out of the gate, not only the financial piece of it, but 9/11 happened. And so we went a solid month and didn't move a single bag. And originally, I had a traditional business model. So I went out and bought vans and had employees until I didn't. And, economically, the only way we could survive was to shift to an independent contractor model. And we did, and I forged through, 11 credit cards and making payroll very unconventionally was part of that, recipe that got me to the other side. And I don't recommend that to anybody. There were smarter ways to do it, but I wasn't gonna fail.
But stay there, because there may be smarter ways to do it, but the reality is, and you and I both get the opportunity to talk to a lot of folks who are new in this industry trying to figure out how to do it. And the question I get a lot of times is, how do I get that first customer? Like, how do I get started? And in your story, it was from a pain point that you saw, and you jumped at it. But then when you jump, you got to think about cash flow.
Yeah.
You got vehicles. You know, in their case, you went W-2 model out the gate.
Yeah.
Like just that, I don't think it should be glossed over how hard those first few months are when you're just trying to figure it out. What ultimately gave you kind of the ability to get over that and get to a place where you're more stable?
Well, I think there was a Pollyannish part of me that just, I wasn't going to be defeated. I had Sandra to contend with. I had two. The boys were born at that point, Kyle and Gavin, and failure wasn't an option. So I don't care what I had to do to make it work. Like I say, in retrospect, there were other levers that could have been pulled, but failure was just not an option. Every time I looked in the mirror, I was going to find a way because I can't disappoint my wife. I've got kids to take care of. So it was a matter of, I'm not going to retire off of delivering lost luggage. So what else should I do?
Yeah.
And set about, the company that we got most of our contracts through at that point was a company called DSI out of Traverse City, Michigan. And DSI had all of the legacy carriers. So if you wanted to do business or deliver bags, you went through them. And they were transactional. So every BDO, baggage delivery order that they drove, they got a percentage of. They got a few cents for each one of those that they drove. And they drove millions a year. So a good deal for them. They also did pharmaceutical, and they were larger in that space. Baggage delivery was an add-on for them. And so we partnered up, and I started doing pharma deliveries for pharma reps, which used to be much more pervasive than it is today.
Yeah, yeah.
And that bled into some other folks that did that type of work, and ground freight and air freight. And so, weighing that all out, and back in the day, I took all comers, and I figured out through trial and error and getting socked in the nose that some things made more sense than others.
Yeah.
And it distilled down. The other thing I would share, Jason, is being nimble and willing to shift from what you are doing to what you could be doing.
Yeah.
I think I always had an appetite to know that, I could have been the baggage delivery guy forever until I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I was always open to what made sense. I just wanted to do it on my own terms, and I wanted that. I really appreciated the flexibility and the uncapped nature about owning your own business. So as an employee, it's very finite.
Yeah.
There's only so many hours in the day, and no matter what your title is, there's a limit to what compensation that you're going to make. And it was really appealing to me that I was the master of my own destiny.
Yeah.
And if something failed, I only had myself to look in the mirror at, and how am I not going to do that again?
Yeah.
Or, my gosh, we knocked it out of the ballpark. How can I duplicate that?
Yep.
That continues to be what motivates me, is that freedom that entrepreneurship brings, and the fact that I can create something out of nothing.